Good evening, everybody. It's Mario with Motorcycle Knuckle Busters. We're back at it again, and got a really cool guest tonight. And to me, this is a lot of fun. I think this really symbolizes what about motorcycles. Just the genre, the lifestyle. But I've come to learn that so many people, be it if it's got a motor and it goes, be it a car, be it a boat, be it a motorcycle, and numerous other things, there's this broad passion for anything like that. When you look at somebody like Denver Mullins from Denver's Choppers, he was into boat racing, built beautiful bikes, him and Mondo and everything else. And our next guest, most people don't know that he's, necessarily into bikes. So we really want to talk about that, but we want to talk about his career. And his career was a phenomenal career, something that I followed, I enjoyed, and it's going to be such a pleasure and honor to speak to him. But without further ado, I want to introduce Rusty Wallace.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for being on the show, Mario. It's you guys have really got a hell of a show going on there. And when I heard about maybe getting on it, I jumped on the idea. But yeah, I've done a lot in my life, and so I guess we can get talking about it.
Yeah, you sure have. I mean, and I know, it's the first thing when mentioning your name, people think about the NASCAR career and they go right there to NASCAR and some of the legendary battles you were involved in. But I want to back it up a little, and I want to learn a little bit more about you. Now, you grew up in Missouri, correct?
Yeah, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri area, a little area called Fenton, Missouri, just southwest of St. Louis. And my dad owned a paper route back in the day. He owned gas stations, and then he was also a racer on the side. On the weekends, he would go to the local track and race, and that's where my brothers Mike and Kenny and I kind of got involved in helping Dad, and we kind of learned our skills building race cars back then. And back then it was just a hobby. You couldn't make any money at it, none of that stuff. But that's where we kind of honed our skills, and then my career started taking off when I got real excited about it.
Yeah. So now, so your dad raced. Now, what did he? Was he what type of cars was he racing?
Well, back then he was racing the late model cars, they called them, in the St. Louis
Yep.
area. And that was a '69 Camaro. Well, he raced a '67 Chevelle, and they had big roll cages in them, big fat tires, and back then it was 327 Chevrolet engines in them, and really cranking power out and turning them up pretty good. But the local track around there was a little place called Valley Park Speedway, right outside of St. Louis, and we would, as a family, would go there every single Sunday night to help Dad and watch Dad. And man, he was the series track champion like 5 years in a row. He just won everything in the world, and Dad's the one that got us all involved in the sport. And so, when I became old enough, he said, "You know what? I've had it. Now I'm going to turn this thing over to you kids to have some fun." And I took it serious, and I started winning some racing on the local track. And then I started going down to Springfield, Missouri, and racing down there. Met a guy named Larry Phillips, who was the big car builder that actually took me under his wing and taught me a ton. And then, boy, after that, I started getting on the road. I started traveling all over the United States, just racing all these little racetracks, and had a really good supporter, a fellow by the name of John Childs. He owned a company called Childs Tire Company in O'Fallon, Missouri, and he's the guy that really helped give me my first break with helping pay for tires and pay for hotel rooms and all the stuff it took back then to get out there and get going. And so, yeah, my career basically took off after I finally got out of the little short tracks and got on the road and started just becoming a race car roadie, so to speak.
So when did you actually start racing? How old were you when you started getting behind the wheel?
Well, you had to be 18 years old to get behind the wheel, and I was 17. I had to go to the court and get a court order, and my mom and dad had to sign off on it for me to even get on the racetrack. And so I was 18 years old. I was 17 and a half actually, and I finally got on there, and I won my very first race, which was called a semi-feature event that night. And I remember, if you won that race, that put you in the big race. That put you in the main feature event. Well, hell, in the semi-feature event, I got so excited that I won that after that 30-lap race was over, I forgot to put fuel back into the car. And when I got in the big race, I ran out of damn fuel. I couldn't believe it. So, a little embarrassing, but to let that happen. But that was my first claim to fame right there. And that first win got me going.
That's awesome. Well, because it's interesting now. I've got a buddy of mine. He was into racing, and he got his kids into doing the little micro sprints, and just young, and throwing them out doing those little. There was a little 8th mile track, and then kids shooting around there on there, learning some skills and stuff. And I grew up in northeastern Ohio, so the Blaney brothers, you probably
Oh
know
yeah.
Dave. So you got Dave, and Dave's dad, Lou, he cut his teeth. He was always, he was the guy down at Sharon Speedway, which, Dave actually owns that track now. So, and now you see Ryan, it's something that's just, it seems to be in the blood.
It is in the blood, and it got so much in my blood that when I started running all these tracks all around the country, I started winning a lot of races. And I said, you know what? It's about time that I focus on something big instead of just saying I won here and I won there. And so back then, the big series was called the American Speed Association. And we had some of the biggest racers in the country run that series. And I said, okay, I've been able to be successful at all these different racetracks. You just mentioned Sharon Speedway. I ran up there when that place was asphalt, and
Yep.
and really ran good and won up there in that area, I believe. But that year, 1983, I'll never forget. I decided, okay, look, I'm going to go for the American Speed Association Championship, and I'm going to put my all into it. Well, fast forward along, I won a bunch of races that year, and I ended up beating the late Dick Trickle, who was one of
Yeah.
the best racers in the country.
Yeah.
I won, and Dick finished second, so I won the championship. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from a guy by the name of Cliff Stewart down in High Point, North Carolina, whose sponsor in the NASCAR Cup Series was Gatorade. He said,
Okay.
hey, look, kid, we saw that you won this ASA championship. We're looking for a new fella. I want to give you an opportunity to drive our car. Oh my God, I went crazy. I was so excited. So, there it was. I went from just beating around the short tracks to running the American Speed Association and winning the championship to because of that, making it into Cup. And so my very first year was 1984 with Gatorade as a sponsor. And what happens? I have a decent year and I win the Rookie of the Year. And
Right.
man, I tell you what, that was a big, big deal for me. And so then after that, my career pretty well started taking off then.
So, now prior to this, I mean, you were married, what, 1980?
Yeah, 1980, a lot of special things happened in 1980. I drove for Roger Penske one time and finished second in the Atlanta 500. And then I
Yeah.
drove for him again and I crashed and had a bunch of problems. And he said, man, I want you to go back, get some more experience. And hopefully one of these days our paths will cross again. So 1980, that was really went from high till low. I finished second in that Atlanta 500. And then I wasn't driving for him any longer because I was having bad luck. And I went back. And that's when I really focused on the ASA stuff and won the
Sure.
title, like I mentioned. And then I drove for Cliff Stewart with that Gatorade car for a couple years, and then I got hired by a guy named Raymond Beadle, who was the big drag racer out of Dallas, Texas. And Tim Richmond, the late Tim Richmond, drove for him a little bit. He
Yes.
put this car in 4 races into the year. I go to Bristol, Tennessee, and I win the Valley Dale 500, the big race in Bristol. And then 2 weeks after that, I go to Martinsville, Virginia, and I win there. And at that point, that's when I said, man, I think I'm in the club, man. I have finally made it. I've won 2 races. And I was thinking that maybe that first race I won at Bristol might have been a fluke or something, but it wasn't. I ran strong all day and then went to Martinsville and run good again. And boy, I tell you what, I drove for 5 years for Raymond Beadle. Great, great owner. And then he started having some financial problems. And I got a phone call from Miller Brewing Company. They wanted to sponsor me after I won the championship in 1989 with Raymond Beadle. And the very next year, we were going to fold the team up just because he was having financial problems. Well, that's when I got the phone call from Roger Penske. And Roger and I and a guy named Don Miller, great friend of mine, started Penske Racing. And the career took off. And when it was all said and done, at the end of 2005, we won 55 races. Got put in 7 different Hall of Fames. And probably one of the highlights of my career was in 13 when they put me in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. But, the career was just fantastic. And a lot of cool things happened because of that. I got in the car business. A lot of people don't know, but I own automobile dealerships. I got 8 of them in East Tennessee and the Knoxville, Tennessee area. I've been in the business for 31 years now. I did a lot of work for 9 years in a row with ESPN as a commentator. Now I work with the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR, as a color analyst along with their team. And so things are going good. I'm happy. But, I've had a passion in my life for a long time for motorcycles. And we had a guy by the name of Mike Helton. And Mike Helton is the president of NASCAR. Now he's the CEO of NASCAR. He's the chairman of NASCAR, let's call it that way.
Yeah.
He started taking us to Sturgis 19 years ago, just as a way to get back to us. Took me, Tony Stewart, took Dale Jr., took a bunch of us racers out there. Well, he started tapering off and not going as much, but I couldn't slow down. I got so hooked on Sturgis and so hooked on the motorcycle stuff that I started building bikes, and we started having a fun time. And I'm still going to Sturgis. This will be my 20th year going to Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. And a lot of good things have happened in the motorcycle business since we started doing all that.
Yeah, I mean, you're building some really awesome bikes and everything. And you talk about some of your accomplishments. And one of the series, when you won the IROC series, I used to love that IROC series because I love the fact, brought racers from different disciplines and everything else, and threw you guys together and matched cars and everything. Tell folks who maybe don't remember that quite as well. Tell them about that series.
Yeah, the International Race Champions was a series that probably some of the world's greatest drivers competed in. And we all, they would get, I'll never forget Nigel Mansell, 1993, I think it was, the 93 season. I think I'm right. Nigel runs with this. We get Mario Andretti. We had, all the IndyCar guys. Steve Kinzer with sprint cars. We had, obviously, Dale Earnhardt Sr. with stock cars, and Mark Martin, and all of us. Well, it was just a hell of a series, a lot of fun. And I ended up winning the title. And it was a great run for me to be able to win, at least win one title in the IROC series. And I think that year there was 4 races in IROC every year. And I ended up winning 3 of them. I won, I believe it was Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Daytona, I think Talladega. Or was it not Talladega? Maybe it was Watkins Glen, New York, in the road course, the last one I won. But IROC series was a great one. It was a series that everybody's wanted to be into because it was invitation only, and you really you had to do something to get invited to that series. And so I got invited and was able to win a title in IROC. But that was a non-NASCAR event. That was a non-points paying event. It was just all for the money and all for the glory. And it was a lot of fun. And I got to meet a lot of really, really cool people. Al Unser Jr., I remember Al was one of the best road racers I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
We actually raced on the airport course up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, Lakefront Airport. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, Lakefront Airport. Did you ever go out there and watch that race by chance?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
I did.
That's where I got my butt kicked so bad it was unreal. I said, man, I thought I was a pretty good road racer until I saw Al Unser Jr. race a road course on that flat racetrack and went, wow.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of techniques to getting that thing done. That was really a neat deal. But no, that was IROC. And then, the NASCAR career took off. We kept doing that. And finally, I was able to win a lot of races. And I remember I kept getting asked by all the media guys, hey, Rusty, you've won about everything around, aren't you ever worried about getting hurt and something going wrong? I go, no, not yet. He said, man, maybe you ought to think about, hey, you're on top of your game right now. Maybe there's a lot of other things you could do in the sport. I had media people come up to me doing that. And I'm like, why are they saying that, And the reason they were saying that is because my career started tapering off. I was, constantly in the top 5 and constantly winning. Well, I went 72 races without a victory one year. And then they kept thinking, well, maybe he's had enough of this. And so I started getting those damn questions all the time. But so that was it. And then I'll never forget 2001, we lost Dale Earnhardt Sr. down at Daytona in the Daytona 500. And I was down there, and after that, Mr. France, who owned NASCAR, came up to me and he looked
Yeah.
at me and goes, "I want you to think about hanging it up." And he said, "I don't want to see you end up like this." And it was just it was a really big time conversation, that really stuck with me for a long time. Well, I ended up going about 3 more years, then finally hung my hat up, at the end to announce I was quitting at the end of '04. And Mr. France put a big deal on for me at Daytona International Speedway. And then I had my final year, 2005, made the chase for the championship. And I was able to go out what I call on top of my game. And that's the way I wanted to do it. I didn't want to go out being non-competitive and just let my career kind of go downhill. I was able to keep it up there and keep it rolling. And then after that, things started happening after I retired. Then got the job with ESPN for 9 years and now radio. And now we launched our new motorcycle business a year and a half ago. And that thing has just absolutely been kicking ass. And I'm real proud of my son. He's the lead master fabricator and my partner. And he's been building some just beautiful motorcycles. And so the bike stuff has been my new passion. I still go to a lot of NASCAR races to announce for NASCAR. I'm still up at the car dealerships quite a bit. But the motorcycle thing, I've met so many cool people on the road at different rallies and stuff like that. It's unreal. We'll be going to the Sturgis rally, I'm leaving August. I'll be out there August the 3rd to the 13th. Then we'll be home for a couple of weeks. Then we head out to Bikers Barbecue, I think it's called, and right outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas. Another big rally we're going to go to with our company. And
Okay.
then we're going to try to make some more. We'll be down at Daytona for Biketoberfest. And just a lot of cool things are happening with the motorcycle stuff.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting. Yeah, I can't wait we got some pictures we'll pop up here in a minute, some of the builds and stuff. I have a few more questions. I mean, so, you talk about your brothers, Mike and Kenny and everything else. I mean, how was that racing against siblings and, being, in this sport together like that?
That's a great question. And I get it asked occasionally, but Kenny and my brother Mike, we very seldom raced a ton together. We both found ourselves on the racetrack in Cup Series every now and then. The thing that was so tough about that is they were still honing their skills. They're probably two of the best drivers in the country still today. And Kenny's actually still winning in the modified division around the St. Louis area. But they never had cars like I had. Man, I was driving for Raymond Beadle in that real hot rod Pontiac and winning a ton of races. And then later started the new team with Roger Penske. I was fortunate enough to have two of the very best teams ever in the history of NASCAR that I drove for. And Mike and Kenny weren't that fortunate. So I guess the reason I'm trying to put it that way, if I was out there leading the race, Kenny might be 10th or 12th or something like that. They just never had the cars. I never got to go door handle on a weekly basis with my brothers. Mike was running the dirt tracks a lot. Kenny was running some dirt tracks. Then they could run NASCAR a little bit here. But never year after year consistently, racing in the Cup Series. And I just feel so fortunate to be able to have these good rides that I had and was able to have some good success. But now Kenny has been going to a lot of the motorcycle rallies with me. His last big one was in Daytona for Bike Week in Daytona in March. And he's going to be out in Sturgis with me this time.
Great.
I took Mike for Oktoberfest last year in Daytona. He had a great time, rode with us for, I guess it was 4 or 5 days down there. But they all love motorcycles a ton. Mike right now is doing a lot of rental buildings. He's doing a lot of different things Mike's doing with real estate and stuff. And Kenny, he swears this is going to be his last year behind the wheel, but I never believe him because he's told me that stuff before. And so he just announced, at the end of last year, this is going to be my last year, man. I'm hanging it up. And what's he do? He drops the green flag in this season, and I think he's leading the point series right now, and he's been just winning everything. So I don't think he's going to go out that soon, but he says he is. So we'll see what Kenny does.
I love hearing it. Now, this is something, I can't help but ask, was there anybody, as far as competing, rivalry, or somebody that you just love to drive against? Was there anybody in particular?
Two people in particularly. When I was coming up in the sport, I mentioned earlier a fellow by the name of Dick Trickle, the late Dick
Yes.
Trickle.
Yep.
Dick won over 1,000 races. He was probably the best short track racer in the world, in my opinion. And I got to race with him a ton. And if you were able to beat Dick, you knew you really did something special. And I really love that man. I miss him a lot. But he took me under his wing, and he taught me so many different things about cars, how to set the chassis up, how to understand springs and shocks and air pressure settings and tire staggers and all the things you had to learn back then, because we had no computers, we had no instrumentation, we had no simulation, none of that stuff like they got now. So I needed somebody to help me. And Dick Trickle was the guy that kind of got me on my feet and got me running up front on a consistent basis in that American Speed Association. And here he is giving me everything. I ended up beating him by just like 12 points to win that ASA title in 1983. That's how cool he was. Well, the other guy that I just love racing against, that we just had a flat rivalry. We were good friends, actually on and off the racetrack, but off the racetrack better. And now I'm talking about Dale Earnhardt Sr. Senior would
Sure.
love boating. We would go down to Bahamas every now and then together, our families, on vacation down there, and we had a blast. Then on the racetrack, I mean, he'd go to Daytona and Talladega and kick my butt. And then we go to Martinsville or Bristol, and I was able to return to favor and beat him quite often on those short
Sure.
tracks. But we were really had a hell of a deal going on in the 90s, me and Dale Earnhardt Sr. We were winning a ton of races. But he was probably the nerviest, probably the best driver at that time. I mean, we
Yeah.
had Cale Yarborough, who was just amazing, Richard Petty, who was amazing, David Pearson, but that was earlier before me and Earnhardt. And
Sure.
then Earnhardt and I went through our era, and then it went over to Jeff Gordon, and then it went to Jimmy Johnson. That era changed and changed and changed. But those two drivers right there are the ones that I really enjoyed racing with the most, to be quite honest.
I know when I was a boy in the '70s, growing up and stuff, and the NASCAR races were on. To watch Petty and people like that. The Allison Brothers stuff. You couldn't wait to get. You're trying to get things done, and when it's time to farm, it's time to farm. It don't wait for nothing. But if it was a rain out day or something like that, it might be raining in Ohio, and it wasn't raining in Talladega. You'd have the TV tuned in watching the races. That was a big deal for us because we didn't have much else to do.
Yeah, I understand.
So
And that's the reason people love NASCAR so much. Without NASCAR, I mean, there's been a lot of bored people. They say, people used to come to me all the time and say, I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I am so bored. I can't see straight. There's no NASCAR race this week. And I'm going, man, I finally needed a break. I got a break. But boy, the real, downhearted, the real NASCAR fans, they don't want a break. They just want to keep racing and racing and racing. And that's fun.
yeah.
Having be so happy and having so many cool fans like that.
Well, and you alluded to something else, and maybe you can expand on that. I think some folks don't understand. You talk about the car. You talk about having the right car. There's a lot that goes into having the right car. It's a team, having a good team behind you. It's a driver that actually understands the car he's driving, the dynamics of that car. Okay. And it's the setup. There's a lot of things. Kind of, expand on that for folks here that maybe don't quite understand all the work that goes into that.
That's a great question. And a lot of people just think, hey, it's just a driver, and they all understand you got to have a good car. But man, I'll tell you what, there is no I in a race team. It's just everybody together. I mean, you got to have fast pit stops. You got to have the most power. Then you have the most durable horsepower under that hood. Then you got to have a driver that doesn't. You got to have a driver that drives hard, a driver that understands the car, a driver that doesn't overdrive the car, and then a driver looks at the big picture. And the big picture is at the end of the year, you want to win the championship. And
Yes.
so I'm able to get mentored by a lot of cool people. I'm really big in having great mentors. My dad was a hell of a mentor for me. And then I mentioned Dick Trickle, a crazy, awesome mentor for me. Had a fellow by the name of Don Miller, who was just kind of like, he was kind of like my second dad almost, a guy that would always help me financially and how to, go take my career to the next step and stuff like that. And then after that, it was Roger Penske. Roger just taught me so much about business and how to be a decent human being on and off the racetrack. And so, you know, there was no I in a team. It wasn't just a driver. So you got to have the good car. You got to have the good mentors. You got to have that. And you got to surround yourself with really smart people. Hopefully you want to surround yourself with people that are much, much smarter than you so you can really learn. And I got to tell you,
Yeah.
I'm real fortunate my whole career I was able to do that. You know, Mr. Penske, right now to this day as we're doing this interview, I think he's the second largest car dealer in the world with over close to 400 car dealerships.
Oh,
Here's
he's huge.
a guy just knows business like crazy, right? And then everybody else I just mentioned. I mean, you just want to surround yourself with good people, and I was able to do that. And so when you think, hey, here goes the 2-car by, and Rusty Wallace is driving it, it's a Ford, and Ford's the best car, and you're like, no, it's not that. You know, Ford's a good car, Chevrolet is a good car, Dodge is a good car. I drove for all of them. But it's that team of people behind you that just adjust everything and makes it perfect for you on a week by week basis, because there's 36 races in NASCAR. And that's a ton of races. And man, you got to be good every time if you're going to win that title.
So what track did you enjoy? What was your place that, you know, you'd look forward to getting, you know, hitting rubber to the pavement on?
That had to be Bristol, Tennessee, half-mile racetrack. And why did I like that track so much? Number one, because I won there 9 times. Should have
Yes.
won probably 13. I had, you know, those other ones I was leading and had issues at the very end or whatever. The short tracks, you know, Richmond, Virginia, was able to win up there 6 or 7 times. Martinsville, Virginia, same thing, 6 or 7 times. So a normal person's question would be, why the short tracks? Well, that's where I cut my teeth. I cut my teeth on American Speed Association and all those short tracks.
Yeah.
And so why were you successful on the short tracks? It's because I worked on the car really hard, trying to make those 4 tires stick and make that car handle. I just took a liking to working on the car. So I was constantly working on the motors, constantly working on the springs and the shocks, and constantly, you know, just trying to understand that car. And so when I got to the short tracks, I basically applied that same knowledge to the NASCAR stuff, and it worked. I was able to win a bunch of them NASCAR races on the shorter racetracks. Now, look, I won at Charlotte, I won at Michigan, I won at Dover Diller, I've won all the tracks, I think, except Indy and the Daytona 500. That's about the only ones I didn't win. But I just love those short tracks. And so that was always one of my most favorite. Going to Bristol, 158,000 people sitting in grandstands around that place.
Yes.
Can you
And
imagine?
it's nuts.
Yeah,
I had my kids and we did the Blue Ridge Parkway. We went all the way down. We went and saw some family down in McDonough, Georgia, which isn't too far from Atlanta Speedway.
yeah.
But we were coming back and didn't even realize that the race was going on in Bristol. Well, let me tell you what, you know, when you got little ones, you know, I don't like McDonald's, but Cracker Barrel is always a good bet to feed your family. I go to the Cracker Barrel and the lady tells me it's going to be a 2.5-hour wait. I'm like, what's going on? And she goes, Bristol. And yeah, we found out because there was no hotel rooms for another 2 hours. We had to get northern West Virginia before there was anything, and we were close to home. So the heck with it, we're just driving the rest of the way home. So yeah,
You
just
showed up right
amazing.
dead in the middle of the big Bristol race, right?
Yep, that's
Well, look,
exactly
I
what I
mentioned
did.
to people, here you are, a half-mile racetrack, about 33 degrees of banking. The racing on that track is so exciting, that's unreal. And I mentioned, it's like the Roman Coliseum that they always compare it to that. If you ever saw a picture of that old Coliseum
Yes.
over there. But 158,000 people sitting at that track. That's twice the amount of people that go to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a big,
Yeah,
big, big deal.
yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. Those races are phenomenal and everything. Now, you know, you said there's a couple of things, you know, so you talk about the number of races you won. But you know the number that really jumped out at me was the
Which
number
one?
of top 10 finishes you had.
Oh, yeah. And you know, those top tens that's what gave you the consistency and gave you the good point finishes and was able,
Exactly.
yeah, it helped me win the title back in '89 because you can go out there and just, you know, blaze around the racetrack and win a race. But if you go back the following week and you crash and you finish 25th, then that big average of points back then at the very end of the year is just took a big hit. You're not going to win the title. So you had to be consistent. So those top tens were something very, very important.
So tell me about team, some of the guys in your team. That through the years, team chiefs and stuff like that. Maybe that you want to give a shout to, because I know there had to be some great guys that were on part of that team.
Yeah, you got that right. And I'm going to probably start off with the Blue Max team. That was the team that I was the tightest with, that I actually had success with. And guy named Harold Elliott was our engine builder, incredible engine builder. Our crew chief, a guy named Barry Dotson, had a lot of experience with Cale Yarborough, different drivers, was able to, be a mentor to me too, and teach me how to, not drive too hard, but not drive, just drive the right way. A kid named Todd Parrott, who was my chief tire engineer over there, he went on to be one of the best crew chiefs in the country. I got a guy named Jimmy Makar, who right now runs Joe Gibbs Racing. Jimmy was just amazing with me. So I had a super team back then too. I had these guys that went on later in life to hone their skills and work for different teams and do really, really good, And then probably one of the most fun crew chiefs I ever had that just taught me so much. And it was just, and who is an incredible motorcycle enthusiast is Buddy Parrott. Buddy Parrott and I and the team in 1993, we won 10 races. And that was unheard of to win that many races in 1 year, but we won races in 93. Finished second in the points to Dale Earnhardt Sr. that year because I just didn't have the consistency. I had a couple big crashes that got me way behind the points. But, Buddy Parrott was a guy that had that pit crew rocking and rolling, had some of the fastest pit stops ever in NASCAR, was a great leader. He knew how to put people in the right positions and move people around. Just a really, really cool guy. And then, and man, I'll tell you what, it's just he was a good one. But Larry had to be my last names escape me. Larry, Jesus, my brain just stopped. I hate it when that happens. I'm looking right in the eyeball. My very last crew chief when I retired in 2005, and just a neat guy. I'll think of it. I know. You ever had one of the most important people who look in you right in the eyeball and you get locked up? Well, that just happened to me. So
more and more every day. I hate to admit it, but it's true. So,
man, I'll tell you. But anyway, a lot of guys. Like I said, there's no one person. Larry Carter. I'm sorry, Larry Carter, one of the greatest crew chiefs ever. He was my very last crew chief I ever had in my life, and a great friend of mine. In fact, he wanted me to stay driving a car. My last victory was my 55th victory at Martinsville Speedway, 2004. And he was just pleading with me not to hang it up after the 2005 season. So after I won that last race, I took that grandfather clock that they used to give us. That thing was almost 8 foot tall. I loaded it up in the truck and I took it to his house the next day, knocked on the door because he wasn't working that day, and said, "Here, this is yours." Dude cried like a baby, man. It was one of the coolest sights ever that he got my last trophy ever in my career. And that was just a really special day for me.
That's wonderful. What a great story. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, so now, you've alluded to, car dealerships and all these other things and building bikes and, doing these various things. So, I got Cody queued up a couple of pictures. I want to talk about some of the things you got going on here real quick. So first of all, we did talk about, so we've got this ride coming up at the Buffalo Chip. This is the one we're going to start out at Spearfish at the park and go up through the canyon and everything else and work your way back.
Yep.
So tell me about some of the guests that you're going to have there on that ride with you.
So I got some really cool ones. 10-time world champion drag racer Don the Snake Perdome.
Cool.
Don Perdome will be with us. The Snake, we call him. That's his nickname. One of my great buddies, guy named Walker Evans, has won the Baja 1000 10 times. Just a hell of an off-roader. Now he's one of the main suppliers for shock absorbers for all the Polaris off-road vehicles and stuff. So Walker Evans will be with me. We've had Sarah Palin with us the last 3 years in a row. Sarah's rode with us.
Yeah.
We'll have Clint Boyer, the NASCAR racer. He'll be with us. And there'll be a host of them, a lot of industry people. A guy named Jimmy Adams who owns Featherlight Coach Company, who is one of the guys supplies all the coaches to almost all the NASCAR drivers out there. Jimmy is a big motorcycle enthusiast. He'll be riding with us. Jimmy John, the guys who owns Jimmy
Yeah.
John Sandwich Company.
Get out. I didn't. So he rides, huh? That's fun.
Rides a lot. So Jimmy John will be with us. And but the list is going to go on and on. This is something that I've been doing now. This will be my 4th year. And I rode in the Legends ride back in the day that you participate in a ton. And Rod Woodruff asked me one day, he said, man, you ever thought about doing your own ride? I go, no. He said, I love to do a Rusty Wallace ride. And I was honored when he said that, and still am. I said, okay, let's do it. And so it's been super successful. We take half of the money, 50% of the money from the ride and the proceeds and everything we auction off, including this year's new motorcycle. Half of it goes to the NASCAR Foundation, supporting children. And the other half goes to Special Olympics of Rapid City Flame.
Yep.
And so we give all the monies. We don't keep nothing back. 100% of the monies goes to the kids. And last year we were able to raise about $170,000 last year. I think that what the number was. Maybe of 150,000, between 150 and 170. Anyway, we just wrote a check to one group and wrote the other check to the other group. And so that was that. So this year, we're changing the ride up a ton. We're going to start off this year with the last 2 years. We started off in Black Hills Harley-Davidson Rapids. Not this year. This year, we're going to start off from the Spearfish Park down the city of Spearfish. And we're going to run up through the Spearfish Canyon and all through the back roads down through there. We're going to end up back at the Buffalo Chip. And then we're going to have some beers. And then we're going to have the big auction where we're going to auction off that 2022 Harley-Davidson Road Glide that's been all customized by the guys at Southern Country Customs. And it's a real hot ride. I'm telling you, it's a beautiful bike.
And I want people to know, if you're interested in doing this ride with Rusty, meeting some of these legendary people along with, the legend of Rusty Wallace here, all you need to do is go to the Buffalo Chip site and you can go ahead and purchase your tickets now. You'll be locked in. Listen, any of the rides that Woody does, you being a part of this, they're great rides. There's a lot of camaraderie. I love the fact that, that everybody mingles amongst one another. There's no real egos in the room or anything like that. Rusty, I've met you. We've met at the industry dinner a couple of times, party. And, I walked away the first time I met you. I said, he's just a genuine guy. And I really appreciate that out of you. And I just want people to know that's what they're going to get when they come and do that ride. It's a great time.
Well, we are going to have this whole motorcycle pile of people that we hang with, they're just all really awesome people and a lot of fun. But I will tell you, man, we had something happen last year that just really bugged me. And what happened was we had the auction. We raised over $100,000. It was time to ride. Everybody got together. We took off. All the police are in front of us. Everybody's there. We had everybody in the ride ready to go. We take off and we get up to the intersection. And about 40 motorcycles with me leading them got through, and somehow the cops accidentally stopped. The light changed, and we lost the other 50 or 60 people. And it put a really bad light on the ride, and I didn't like that. And so Woody and I sat and talked to Tony. Said, I will tell you that will never, ever happen again. And so we got that all figured out, and much, much more organized, and also a new starting point, like we said, down at Spearfish. A lot of the people were hanging pretty heavy out there at Sturgis and around the Spearfish Deadwood area. And for them to get on the highway and drive 40 miles out to the Black Hills Harley, some enjoyed it because they were out there and some didn't. So it sounds as though that the new starting point right there is Spearfish Park, and then going up the canyon is really popular so far. So I'm really looking at that. But we got everything. I think we got all the little issues figured out, and we're going to have a great ride.
And I mean, almost as soon as you leave that park, you're right. You're into some of the prettiest country you're going to see in this nation. So beautiful, beautiful ride there. And I got to tell you, the kids from the Special Olympics. I got to tell you the story. I think it was 5 years ago. I had the guys from Counting Cars out there with me. All right, and they were doing the Legends ride. I was on the Legends ride as well. We featured the guys, and we had some of the kids from Special Olympics, and they were kind of milling around there by the hotel there in Deadwood. And I said to Horny Mike and Shannon and Ryan, I said, hey, let's go say hi to the kids, right? And I don't know if you've met the one kid that is weightlifter, heavyweight weightlifter there.
No, I have not.
Okay, he was the world champion, and he saw Horny Mike, and he says, oh my God, I love you, Horny Mike. And he ran over and he threw his arms around, he picked him up and he was holding him. And Mike's not a little guy. Okay. And you should have seen his eyes. He was like, is he going to squeeze the life out of me? Because he was pretty excited to see him. So that was a fond memory of that.
That is special because I did go to and meet all the kids with Special Olympics, and boy, there's some special people. But to see a kid like that is like that important, all face all lit up and happy. That's what this ride does, man. We get to all hang out. We take great pictures. We laugh. We talk about things. We look at the really, really cool motorcycles that are just everywhere out there, as you well know. And it's just a great atmosphere. So much so that I get there on, like I said, I'm going to actually be getting there probably about the 2nd of August and not leaving to the 13th. A lot of guys go for a week. I said, no, man, I'm going as long as I possibly can. I mean, when this thing's over, I'm just distraught. I never want Sturgis Motorcycle Rally to be over. And when it does, it's terrible. Talk about a letdown, man. I tell you, that's the reason I try to, me and my kids and my family, my wife rides with me, my son Steven and all his guys are out there. We use every single day up enjoying it.
So I love it. And that's exactly it. And I feel like it's kind of like a family reunion, but it's with the family you choose.
Hey, one thing I want to remind everybody too is, so the ride is on August the 10th. And I think we're going to gather up over there at Spearfish Park around 11 o'clock. I think we're going to leave at 1. And you can sign up for the ride right there at the location. You don't have to. Okay,
that's good to know.
Yeah, you don't have to get on a website and download something. Now, a lot of people like doing that because that's probably the easiest way to do it. But if you're one of these last-minute people and say, hey, look, let's go on Rusty's ride tomorrow morning, or you wake up that day and say, let's go on the ride, just come out there. You can sign up right there. And remember, every dime goes to these children. We don't keep nothing.
Nope.
And so we're going to have entertainment. We're going to have a lot of cool things going on. So, but you can get on, like you said, the Buffalo Chips website. Go to the section where it shows the rides. You'll see the Legend ride. You'll see the Rusty Wallace ride. And it tells you everything about the ride right there. In fact, we just posted a video of the new motorcycle. So get on there and check out the video I did of the new bike and everything, and me talking about the ride. So at least I hope you do.
Yeah, we'll definitely we'll get that shared. We'll get that link out there as well for folks to see. So I want to talk about what you're doing with Southern Country Customs. Okay. All right. So we brought that up a couple of times, but was checking some things out, and Cody, he was gracious enough to find us a couple of pictures here. So let's talk about some of these bikes.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened was, a year and a half ago, I got so passionate about these bikes, had a partner, a fellow by the name of Brian Wade, and I kind of started the company along with my son Steven. Well, Brian did a lot of work out in California as a movie star, and a bunch of business popped back up, and his wife was going to have a baby, and so him and I sat down, and me and Steven bought the company 100%. So we started Southern Country Customs, took off with it after we bought it from Brian. And man, we've been building these high-end baggers. We've been building street glides and road glides, 18 fatty front tires, 21 fatties, 26s, like it's on that particular bike you're looking at right there. That's a customer. We sold that bike to about 2 months ago, actually. That's a 26 big wheel bike. But we started Southern Country Customs, and we have built probably, I think we're approaching our 55th motorcycle right now we built. And I'm real proud of them. You can, if you go to southerncountrycustoms.com, you can look at all our builds. They're on the website.
I think a 55th build for a guy that won 55 races ought to be something unique.
That's kind of a special number, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think I think we need to have a special twist in there to signify that.
I never thought about that. So I hope when I get to the shop tomorrow, we're at maybe 54. So we got time to make that 55th a special one.
Yeah, or you're going to be 55 and a half, and then the next one's 56, right?
That could be, yeah. Well, back to the bike stuff, I got passionate about it. So we hit it over the head. We've been, we use some of the best vendors, we're using a lot of the top stuff. We're using performance machine stuff, Arlen Ness stuff. We're using Trask
Yep.
performance stuff. John Shoup with Dirty Bird, the guys from
Yep.
HHI over at Hog Halters using a lot of their products, using some of the coolest wheels. And, we're just using top quality stuff. But basically, a lot of the stuffs are 114 motors. We're using a lot of the S&S 475 camshaft. We found that thing makes really good power, real durable, doesn't beat the valve train up. In fact, I sold the bike last year, the charity bike, to a fellow by the name Ryan. And Ryan bought the bike, came over to, he owns Strider Bicycle Company.
Yeah.
Ryan McFarland.
Yep.
He flew over to North Carolina and said, I want you to teach me about this motorcycle, and I'm going to drive this thing back to Rapid City. I said, man, you got to be kidding me. This is a big wheel bagger. This is a 26-inch big wheel bike. He said, no, I can do it. He fired that baby up, drove it 1,901 miles back, would call me every night. And I says, how's it running? He goes, man, it's just purring like a kitten. He said, I love this motorcycle. It's fast as hell. It sounds great. And it had that cam profile in there and with our stainless headers. And so I think we really hit it right on with our engine combination stuff. Sounds great, makes a lot of power, real durable. I mean, for a guy to take off, and I think it was 90 degrees when he left Charlotte here, and he drove it back to Rapid City and sent me a picture of him driving in his driveway with 5 inches of snow on the ground and him wearing a doggone snowmobile outfit on that motorcycle.
Sounds like Rapid City.
Yeah. So that's what he did. But we've been able to build some big power, some good durability. We built our very, very first performance bagger, and it's going to be finished for Sturgis. It's 95% finished now. T-Man Performance up in Kernersville, North Carolina, builds a lot of big horsepower, a lot of components. So he's built a new 139 motor for us, and it makes about 180 horsepower. Yeah, about 180, and it's just a real hot rod looking car. All carbon fiber. Steven dreamed it all up and built it. And if you go to Southern Country Customs Instagram or the webpage, you'll see pictures of that new build also.
Well, we have a few more. I don't think we have that one, but there's this.
That's a great one right there. We built that bike, and that's a non-air ride motorcycle. We had a customer wanted just a regular sprung bike. That bike's got D&D exhaust on it. It's a 2022 Road Glide. It's got a full JRI suspension on it, sprung front shocks and rear suspension. And that customer just loves that motorcycle, man. His name is Ryan Moore. He owns RC Moore Trucking Company. Owns hundreds and hundreds of 18-wheelers. And he got on that bike with his wife. And right now that bike is sitting in Maine. He took it up there last week, and him and his wife called us up and said, that's the best handling motorcycle I've ever been in my life, which really made me feel good coming out of a guy that's smart and understands bikes. And himself was a race driver, raced up at the Oxford, Maine racetrack up in Oxford. Yeah, that's one of them we built right there. But that's a non-air ride bike, and we don't build many non-air ride bikes. Almost everything we have has got what is called the dirty air system on it.
Sure.
And most of the guys want air ride, but that's a 21-inch fat tire bike, and boy, that baby handles good.
Yeah, it doesn't look it because it has such a beautiful flow, and I think I saw that bike and I just love how symmetric it is, and it just has it looks like a screamer. It's a sweet looking bike for sure.
What else you got on there?
Well, we got this one here.
Oh yeah, man. Now let me tell you about that bike. That bike is a real hot rod. That's a 26-inch bike, 2022 Road Glide with a fairing lowering kit. See, the fairing is all the way down on top of the fender.
Yes.
This is a customer out of Detroit, Michigan. That's got the John Shoup Dirty Bird ass end on it. It's got the side covers by John. The tour pack is built by Cody at Voodoo Customs. So Cody built the tour pack. John built the bags and the side covers. We built the whole motorcycle. It's got the 114 with the 475 S&S cam. It's got our stainless steel exhaust that my son-in-law, Colby Bankston, actually builds. And right there in our shop off our jigs. But that is a bike. That guy just loves that motorcycle. He came down and picked it up. And It's got the MRI center stand on it. It's got all the little trick pieces and parts, all the LED lighting under the gas tank. You see the engine all lit up real pretty on it and all that. But that's your showstopper right there. That is one good looking hot rod bike.
So tell me about the process. So somebody goes and calls up the shop and says, "Hey, I want you guys to build me a bike."
Okay.
All right. And I know you've owned car dealerships, so you're very familiar with the process and the sales process. I mean, I used to manage for Numberge Automotive Group out of Pittsburgh, and so I know you know the process. But this is a little bit different because you're selling something, but you're also building to spec and everything else. How does that work for you guys? How do you handle that?
All right, two answers to that. We build. Number one, we're constantly building motorcycles. I'm not going to not build a motorcycle. So once one goes out the door, we start the second one, then we start the third one. So if there's not an order immediately going, I'm always building a spec bike.
So you build a spec bike, sure.
Yeah, Steve and I are going to build what we think looks cool and something we think the customer would really like. So I'll go buy a brand new motorcycle if I can get them. And if not, we'll start off with 2021s or 2022s with 100 miles on them or 200s. And I find those bikes. And basically, we'll take that bike and strip it down. The only thing left on that bike when we're done is the engine and the frame and the wiring harness. We'll put our aftermarket wheels and tires on it. We'll use our own stretched 6-gallon gas tanks. We'll pick out the right handlebars. We'll pick out the right floorboards we want. And Steven and I will actually build that bike along with our one of our lead techs, Josh. And so we'll come up with it. Right now, as we're doing this interview, we're coming off the lift right now with a beautiful 2022 kind of a golden yellow Street Glide. And it's an 18 fatty. And it's one beautiful bike with all stainless exhaust, 114 motor, all the cool stuff. But that's a spec bike. And so it's going to be done. Somebody's going to look at it, love it, and buy it.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of people that call me up and say, "Hey, Rusty, I got a 2021 bike, and I want to hop it up. I want you guys to do the SCC touch to it." I said, "Okay, well, you bring it to us." He brings it to us. We put it up on the lift. We strip the bike right down. I said, and basically we start the conversation with the front wheel. So what are you thinking? I'll tell the customer, what are you thinking? Do you want an 18 fat front tire? So what is that? And I'll show them, and we'll show some different stuff we got in stock. And we'll look at a 21. We'll look at a 23 fatty. And then we'll look at the 26. And then sometimes we'll look at the big 30-inch wheels. So basically the build kind of starts when the customer decides what size front wheel he wants. And when he makes a decision, he's going to pick something between an 18 to 30. Okay, and we'll start there. And then sometimes we got to cut the neck off. We do a lot of custom builds. We got beautiful fixtures right there, fixtures at our shop where we cut the 30s off. I like taking the 30s and cutting the neck off on a 30. A lot of the 26s, HHI, American Suspension, MC Baggers, these guys all build some really bitchin' bolt-on 26 neck kits that I prefer, and they really handle good and ride good. And so, look, we'll pick out handlebars, we'll pick out the neck kit. I've been basically using a lot of the guys' LaPera seats, a lot of LaPera stuff. We use a lot of John Shoop's ass ends. We use a lot of Top Shop back ends, the saddlebags. A lot of different providers, but we'll just start sculpting that. I built a bike for a fella out of Missouri the other day, and what do you think I should have? And I said, what wheel you like? And he said, well, I think I like this size, a 21. And so then we just kind of mentally put it all together, what SM we wanted, what audio system we wanted, and went all through that process. And I presented it to him, and he goes, man, I love it. And we built the bike for him. His name is Tony Jackson Jr. He's a hell of a short track racer out of Lebanon, Missouri. Races on the dirt tracks. And that bike showed up, could be one of the most beautiful bikes you ever built. It's on the website too. It's a white Road Glide 21 fatty.
Yeah, I saw the picture of that. That's a sweet looking bike.
A neat motorcycle, man. That thing turned out good. And by the way, when we get done with every one of these bikes, we drive the shit out of them. We test them and tune them and test them and just get them perfect. Make them. I tell my kid Steve, I said, we got to have these babies race ready, man. We got to be able
See,
to drop
I
the
never
flag
imagined
and go
Rusty Wallace
500.
would say, I would never imagine Rusty Wallace would say to me, we drive the shit out of it. Because,
Yeah,
you
we
know,
do. We make sure they're
haven't
right,
you
man.
been doing that all your life?
When those babies leave our shop, they're tuned perfect. You know, the shakes and rattles and rolls have been worked out of them. All the bugs are gone. Everything is just perfect, you know. And we use a lot of stuff from Sounds Audio out of Daytona Beach, Florida. And
Yes.
their product is plug and play. It's great. And we
Yep.
tune those amplifiers just the way they tell us to do it. And the music's always real good. And so that's pretty well the process. You just start off with what you got. You can bring us your bike, or else we'll locate a bike for you. You just got to remember, when you bring the bike, the only thing that's going to be left is the frame and the motor and the wiring harness. And I had people
Sure.
say, "Man, I bought this bike. It's got the most beautiful, beautiful black paint job on it." I said, "Well, I'm not going to use none of that." And they're like, "What?" I said, "We don't use the gas tank. We don't use the front fenders. We don't use nothing except the engine, the frame, and the wiring harness. We do all our own entire body kit. I'm talking handlebars, grips, foot pegs, floorboards, all that stuff, you know." And they're amazed. And then they'll say, "Well, I want all that old stuff back because it's probably worth a ton of money." I said, "Yeah, here, take it." They take it all back, and I said, "Oh, it's been sitting in my garage for 2 years." I said, "Okay, it's worthless."
Yep.
Basically, you don't get much out of that junk at all. They think you get a bunch of money, but you don't,
No, you don't. I've got pipes and different things and stuff that's come off of stock bikes, and they're sitting there, and you don't end up doing anything with them. And you're like, and then you've held on to it for so long, you're like, well, I can't get rid of it now because you feel vested in it. So, but not the right way to go.
Hey, we've
So,
been using lately I was talking about people. We've been lately been using a lot of RC components wheels. They're making a new wheel right now called the Dillinger Eclipse. We love the way the wheel looks. We can paint that different shapes, and the customers seem like they're liking that wheel a ton. But we use a lot of other brands too. I mean, my Sinister, we've been using a lot of Sinister wheels. We use the RC components. Uh, I can go on and on and on, but that's how the process is, and it's worked good for us.
that's it's so exciting. Really looking forward to it.
About
I
six
think
weeks for a build. You bring a bike. When can I expect? I told Tony Jackson Jr., "How long will it take to get my bike?" I said 6 weeks, and we deliver it in 5 weeks. And that's with every bug worked out of that bike. That thing was perfecto, and that's the way they all are, though. Really.
well, you know what? That means you got a good business model down because we both know that there's a lot of guys, you place an order or you looking for something custom, it ain't happening in that period of time. At least not to the level of quality and craftsmanship that you and your team are doing there. So, man, I really commend you and your team for doing a hell of a job there.
I appreciate that a lot. I mean, there's different type of builders too. I mean, there's builders that are just completely custom. I'm talking about every little part
Oh,
gets plated and sent off. And those are amazing looking motorcycles. I mean, Curly's, he does a great job. The guy's a powerhouse out of
yep,
Texas. They do a great job. But that's a whole different thing we're building. I mean, they're building some really beautiful exotic machines, and we're building beautiful exotic machines too. But our stuff, I can deliver it, at a decent price point, and they're beautiful hot rods, as you see when you look at the gallery. So, two different.
absolutely. So I really, this has been a great time. We've really enjoyed that. And I'm sure we'll circle back around on some of the new events that you're going to have coming up. Each show, we close out each show. We have 3 questions for our guests. They're all the same questions for everybody. So we're not going to surprise you with anything weird. But I love to hear these answers. They tend to, and our audience loves to hear the answers. So you ready for 3 questions?
Do it.
Okay. First question is, if you could go ride with anybody, past or living, who would you like to ride with?
Oh, if I could ride with anybody, past or living. Oh, past. I think it'd be fun because the movie he made, Peter Fonda. The old
Okay.
Easy Rider bike. I think that'd be pretty cool. I actually saw him at the Goodwood Festival Speed one time in Goodwood, England, and I actually had dinner with him.
Nice.
Out there. But I always I thought it'd be cool to line these old bikes up side by side. It'd be kind of fun to ride with him one time.
Absolutely. I think that's probably an answer for a lot of people out there. So now this question, I mean, I'm really curious to answer this. if you could own any bike, have any bike, what bike would you like to have?
Oh man, you really got me now because I'm so much in just to the bagger scene right now. So, but what bike? There's so many other cool bikes out there. I went to Wheels of Time in
Yeah.
Maggie Valley.
Yep. The
Got
old
a
place.
tour, and I saw some of those old 1940 model bikes. And we got ready to leave his Maggie Valley, and he was going to ride with us. And we started going up through off the Parkway and some real twisties and turnies and tight stuff. I could not believe how fast that motorcycle was, being built in 1940. So I guess I've never been able to get on a bike that old that had the performance those things had. At least that one he was riding. So I
Sure.
think those old 1940 Springers or whatever they were back then. I do
The old
know that
knuckles and stuff.
he was
Yeah.
getting, huh?
The old knuckleheads and stuff
Yeah,
back in the
yeah,
day.
all
Yeah.
that stuff like that. It'd be fun to do that. Yeah. Uh,
But
like I say, I understand the baggers. I don't understand those, but I really appreciate what the hell they are and how well they performed.
absolutely. A great answer. And then, real curious about this one. If you could go ride anywhere in the world that you haven't to this point, where would you like to go ride?
If I go anywhere in the world, would I ever like to ride at? Um, God, that's a tough one. I tell you, I'm really big about riding in the States. I love Montana. I love, out there where we go in South Dakota, it's just incredible. I will tell you though, the last 2 years in a row, I have rode the mountains of North Carolina on Highway 23, Highway 28, up outside of Asheville, and around.
That's a beautiful area.
And that area is just absolutely mind blowing how great a riding is. I've had
Yep.
people come up to me and say, Rusty, I rode everywhere in the United States, and this got to be the best riding I've ever seen in my entire life. And so it's pretty hard to top what I've done the last 2 years, and that has been up there around this area called Lake Toxaway, around Cashiers, around,
Hmm.
like I say, the Highway 20, the Moonshiner 28, and all that type of riding up there.
Coming
The
out of Cherokee and heading down towards Asheville and all that, that's some beautiful riding for sure.
Yeah, it really is. Now, everything else that I would maybe do, maybe just be real scenic riding stuff. But when you're talking like, holy smokes, wow, I can't believe I just rode this road and how cool it was. It's hard to beat that, northwestern North Carolina mountains and all that stuff. But, don't really know much about, France and England and all that, about how the riding is there. I'm sure some cool stuff over there, but it's pretty hard to convince me that I just didn't finish some of the coolest stuff the last couple of years up in those mountains in North Carolina.
Well, it's we have a beautiful country. We're blessed. I mean, some of the ride places you can go right up in Maine, upstate New York. There's just going out to Oregon, Washington. I mean, there's just so many beautiful, beautiful places. And there's maybe one of these days you go do the Four Corners rally there in Durango, Colorado, because there's some beautiful riding around there as
I
well.
would love to hear stuff like that. I'd love to do all that. I really would. I just don't know a lot about it. I
Well,
tend to be in the shop a lot building bikes, but I would love to do that. Today we were coming home we got a home up in the North Carolina mountains, and my wife Patty and I were coming back, and she was just talking about. She said, "Man, we've been blessed to go to some nice places and stuff, but said if we live anywhere, where will we live?" She was talking about populations kind of having enough excitement, but getting away from all the traffic and crazy stuff. So I guess we have to go somewhere in Montana. And then I pop up and I said, you know what? One of the best places I've ever been, and you and I go there every year, is out there is Deadwood, Rapid City,
oh
Spearfish,
yeah,
that beautiful area, man. I could live there, no problem. But I got all my family here. We're all rooted here on the Lake
sure.
Norman, North Carolina area outside of Charlotte. That's kind of where we're at. Our race shops are in Mooresville, only 15 miles north of Charlotte, right on Interstate 77, where we at there. But man, again, every time I get to go out to South Dakota, that's a beautiful, beautiful area.
Well, you NASCAR, you guys, you like Mooresville and Lake Norman. That's a hot place for all of you all.
Well, that's where all the builders are at. That's where all the NASCAR stuff is at.
Yep.
All the big shops, you're talking Richard Childress, Hendrick Racing, Penske Racing, a lot of Joe Gibbs Racing. All the big teams are in this area.
Yep.
But that's the reason I moved from St. Louis, Missouri back in 1983 to North Carolina, because I had to be down here if I was going to chase my NASCAR dream. And that's how I ended up in the Carolinas. I'm a St. Louis, Missouri guy. In fact, when I'm get off this interview, I'm probably going to go upstairs, turn the TV on, and watch a St. Louis Cardinals game tonight. I think they're playing Atlanta. So my
There you
wife's
go.
a baseball fan. We'll probably be doing that here shortly.
And now you and Patty, now you've been married for 42 years.
Yeah, long time. And boy, I tell you what, I used to go to Sturgis all the time with the guys and myself. And the last 5 years, she has went, and she loves it so much it's unreal. We stay out there at Elkhorn RV Park and with all our buddies. Don Perdome's out there. Like I said, Jimmy Adams and all the guys, and Walker Evans and my son and all his buddies. And we got all our motorcycles stacked from here to hell everywhere out there. And we just love that area, and she just loves it so much. She's counting down the days that we get ready to leave to go out that area. So we're pumped about it.
Well, we stay at the Buffalo, Chip, and there's some good friends, some former Navy SEALs, Green Berets, different guys like that. And we all do a lot of cooking, and Woody, a lot of folks come by. It's kind of a big thing to come do. So, just you and yours are officially welcome anytime. So
thank you very much.
We'd love to have you. And if I could I know you want to get, maybe to that game and everything else, but you're sitting in your office and you kind of showed us some things earlier. And I think folks here would love to see some of the stuff around your office.
Oh, well, we can lift this iPad up I'm doing this interview on, and we'll show you some stuff. So when I retired, a lot of the drivers took their helmets off their head and gave them to me. And right there, you'll see we got Kurt Busch, we got Tony Stewart in the second row. Next to that's a Lowe's helmet of Jimmy Johnson. Got Kevin Harvick down there, Mark Martin. And the trophy at the very top, that's when I won the inaugural race in Suzuka, Japan. We ordered Japan one year, and I won that. That's a trophy there. And the ones below are my second and third place championship trophies in NASCAR. The one I'm most proud of right there, that's my championship trophy when I won the title in 1989. I mentioned the Goodwood Festival of Speed, where I was able to meet, a lot of people out there. That little silver car, I drove up the mountain at the Goodwood, and I was the fastest, what they call saloon car. So I won that trophy there. There's the trophy when I won the 2000 California 500. And then there's Jeff Gordon's helmet he gave me. There's Dale Jr.'s helmet he gave me. There's Dale Jarrett. There's Jeff Burton up top there. Then the yellow helmet. A lot of the drivers participated, and they all signed it and gave me that. And there's a little one I'm pretty proud of over here. It's the smaller one over there. That says Team Penske. They put me in the Penske Racing Hall of Fame, which was a neat deal. But, yeah, it's just some of the stuff. What do we got down here? That's when I won the Winston in Charlotte. The big 1980, the 89 race when Darrell Waltrip and I crashed in the Winston. I went on to win the race, and he spun out. Paid me $250,000 that day. It was a big deal.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's just some of the stuff. Oh, that's the gold. There's my gold trophy right there. That when I won the championship, Goodyear gives you a solid gold replica of a car, and that's got the number 2 on the side of it. And that was provided by Team Penske and Goodyear. That's a neat car.
What
that's a little bit about the office down here.
Yeah, what beautiful memories and
Thank you.
That you have and everything else. And we so appreciate you sharing everything with us. And sir, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and you were a lot of fun for us. And I'm sure we'll circle back around with some of the other things maybe in the future you've got going on, because you never seem to slow down now, do you?
Well, I love doing it. I just love motorsports and love all the fine people you get to meet around it. And like I said, in the last couple of years, I've really got really deep into building these motorcycles. I'm having a fun time with that. But again, my bucket list is always going to Sturgis, and I'm honored this year that they made me the 82nd, the Grand Marshal for the 82nd Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. I'm excited about
that.
I
almost forgot we didn't hit on that, did we? So that was almost a big boo-boo. Yeah, 80. So last year was Jody Perowitz, and this year it's you. And I mean, that's a heck of an honor, and they don't that selection, they don't take that lightly. So that is a heck of an honor. And it really shows you've put yourself in a very prominent place in the motorcycle world and how highly regarded you are.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because when I got that call, I went, wow, you want me to be the Grand Marshal? Why me? He said, man, you're big into bikes and you're loving it. You've got the passion that we like to have, that we want people to have. And I said, okay. And so, so I think it's the 5th of August. We're going to start off in Main Street, Sturgis, and we're going to ride from the beginning of Main Street to the end. And basically, from what I hear, we're going to drop a green flag, and that's going to start the 82nd Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. So that'd be cool. Now, I guess
Yeah, it will be.
the very next day, I think on the 6th, we're going to do the Mayor's Ride, the Mayor's Charity Ride. So
Yep.
we'll have a lot of our guys, our buddies will be hanging out. We're going to do that ride. And then the following week, we do the Rusty Wallace ride. So a lot of fun riding out there in Sturgis and Deadwood and Rapid City area.
Yeah, I'm hosting the Mayor's Ride that day. I'm hosting the Schools Out Chopper show, so we'll be busy with that. What's that?
I'll see you out there then.
Well, you got to come by. We'd love to have you, and Billy Lane, Mondo, a lot of different people like that will be out there. And we got some beautiful bikes. And you talk about the custom builders, those guys that are making each and every part darn near. It's just amazing what they get into. And, I talked to some of those guys, and they're like, yeah, I made this and I didn't like it. I ripped it off, and it took me 5 more tries to finally decide I liked the way it looked. And
well, that happened.
You're a perfectionist.
We've done that ourselves. We get it all done. And I'm like, man, this thing did not turn out the way we thought it was going to. I'll never forget, we built this beautiful, beautiful black Street Glide. And we did a lot of chrome and we did a lot of black. And when it was all said and done, I got so much feedback from that bike down at Daytona. And they're all saying, most of the people were saying it's got too much chrome on it. So I had to bring that bike and de-chrome it. And then when I looked at it, it was really hot and it sold right away. So
that's wonderful. I love it. So.
Learn from mistakes.
Yeah, you do. So we're going to see you in Sturgis. I'm looking forward to it. I'll make sure we get signed up and for your ride, and we'll get some coverage. Maybe we'll put that we'll get some good stuff together so we can do a really nice wrap up video of the Sturgis rally. Make sure we got some good footage of your ride there. All right.
Well, it's been great being on your podcast here, and we shared a lot of old stories, and thank you very much, and I'll see everybody out there in Sturgis.
Sounds great. Thank you, sir. You have a good evening.
Okay.